Dear ministers, distinguished guests, esteemed participants, it's my distinct honor to welcome you to the 18th edition of the Verona Eurasian Economic Forum. Of course, one of the world's foremost platforms for economic dialogue, this year proudly hosted in the historic and this vibrant city of Istanbul. This gathering brings together leading figures from the global business community and the key decision makers across a wide spectrum of economic sectors. The forum is organized by the Italian non-profit association Conoscere Eurasia in collaboration with the Investments and Finance Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey. It serves as a strategic platform to advance both local and also international business ecosystems toward new frontiers of growth and prosperity in the context of ongoing economic, technological, environmental, and development transformation. Istanbul's unique geographical and cultural position at the crossroads of two continents perfectly embodies the spirit and the vision of this forum. Before we begin, allow me to share a heartfelt note. Yesterday, we celebrated the 102nd anniversary of the Republic of Turkey. On this meaningful occasion, we once again commemorate with deep gratitude, deep thanks, our great leader, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, whose vision and legacy continue to inspire our nation's progress, democracy, and modern identity. And over the next 2 days, we will explore how innovation, energy, and collaboration can shape a more sustainable and prosperous future. Our agenda will take us from new realities of energy cooperation to the role of digital technologies, from global business transformation to the cultural dimension of course, tourism. The forum is a living example of how dialogue between East and the West can turn shared challenges into shared opportunities. Let's see. But before, we have a special trait that we believe bring joy everyone in the room. Please join me in welcoming the renowned Italian singer, Mr. Albano, with big applause.
Buongiorno.
Good morning.
How are you? Okay? The answer is very perfect. Professore, dove sei per la traduzione?
Professor, where are you for the translation? But we have translators.
Okay, I don't know, I speak English, Spanish, Italian, Napoletano, Sicilian. This is next year. Sure, next year. Well, I come from Australia. I finished my Australian tour. Yesterday I arrived in Istanbul. In Istanbul, of course, I stayed for long times and many times, and of course, I enjoy it. It's a special place, this one, because like economic forum, and I read something special, Conoscere Eurasia is special because from Europa to Asia you have a great and historic and symbolic bridge. And I hope this kind of bridge come all the time more stronger, more stronger, more stronger. Because with peace, the humanity grow up and produce culture, produce great effect, produce love. Because when the war is out, the love grow up. This is my wish to this moment, and tonight is my place in the stage, and I hope to give you all my Italian style of music and my international love to everybody. because with love, everything will be love. Grazie. Professore, grazie.
Thank you, Mr. Albano, for your gracious welcome, and really we admire your music, so thank you very much again. We look forward to your performance at tonight's concert. Without further delay, I'm delighted to officially declare the forum open right now. With big applause.
Eurasia is the world's main economic engine. Despite rising global geopolitical tensions, economic ties across the region are expanding, and cooperation among many Eurasian countries continues to grow. New international infrastructure, industrial and logistics projects are emerging, and trade between nations is increasing. Eurasia is home to 5 billion people, thousands of cities, and countless active connections among entrepreneurs, policymakers, and societies. But cooperation doesn't happen on its own. It is built by companies and governments, banks and universities, cultural and civic organizations. The Verona Eurasian Economic Forum provides a space for dialogue across many fields, bringing together East and West. Here, people from across Eurasia meet to strengthen economic and cultural ties and to promote collaboration. Welcome to the 18th Verona Eurasian Economic Forum.
And following this, we are honored to welcome to the stage Professor Antonio Fallico, President of Association Conoscere Eurasia. Professor, the floor is yours.
Dear friends, it's a great honor for me to be here and read the welcome from the President of the Russian Federation, Mr. Putin, to the participants in this forum.
Dear participants of the 18th Verona Eurasian Economic Forum, dear friends, I am happy to welcome you here at the official opening of the 18th Verona Eurasian Economic Forum that is taking place in the city of Istanbul for the first time. Istanbul is one of the leading political, cultural and business centers of Eurasia. Over the past few years, Verona Eurasian Economic Forum has become a renowned and respected platform, and the regular meetings of politicians, businessmen, scientists and representatives of the cultural community are taking place there. They meet to discuss the most pressing issues of the global economy and contribute to development of international cooperation. That kind of timely work is particularly important today, taking into account the particular role of our continent in the world affairs, among others, the processes of building a multipolar world order. Specifically here in Eurasia, we have the major economic growth drivers focused. Those are the key transportation and trade routes. And I would like to emphasize that the Russian initiative of the larger Eurasian partnership is focused on mutually beneficial joining of the potential of all the countries and nations located in the region, including all the integrational associations. The topic of today's forum, New Energies for New Economic Realities, is quite up to date. and you're about to discuss the prospects for development of cooperation in the areas of energy and digital economy, as well as investment and scientific cooperation, as well as transportation and logistics. I'm convinced that your discussions here at the forum will be very meaningful and constructive, and the proposals and initiatives presented by you will find their practical implementation for the good of our countries and peoples. I wish you all the best and good luck, Vladimir Putin.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Fallico. We now invite to the stage His Excellency, Mr. Mehmet Nuri Ersoy, Minister of Culture and Tourism of the Republic of Türkiye, to deliver his welcome address.
Distinguished President of the Conoscere Eurasia Association, Mr. Antonio Fallico, esteemed guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to Istanbul and to extend my sincere greeting on the occasion of the 18th Verona Eurasian Economic Forum, organized by the Conoscere Eurasia Association in cooperation with our country under the theme New Energy for New Economic Realities. The forum aims to examine the effects of developments in sectors such as energy, transportation, agriculture, finance, digital technology, and tourism on the global economy, bringing together distinguished representatives from Turkey and across Eurasia. The forum, which has been held annually in a Eurasian country since 2022, with the goal of enhancing economic cooperation among Eurasian nations, carries an even deeper meaning for us this year as it convenes in the Turkey, a country that plays a pivotal role between Europe and Asia. The guests, according to UN tourism figures, international tourism reached 1.5 billion arrivals and $2 trillion in revenues in 2024, while in the first half of 2025 alone, 690 million international tourist arrivals were recorded, underscoring the undeniable global and economic significance of the sector. Tourism has become one of the fastest growing industries due to rising disposable incomes, advances in transportation and communication technologies, and people's desire to explore new destinations. With its multifaceted structure, tourism is directly and indirectly connected to approximately 38 different sectors, particularly the economy. The consumption expenditure made by both international visitors and domestic tourists, along with investments to meet rising tourism demand, such as improving infrastructure and enhancing service quality, generate income not only for the tourism sector, but also for the industries that support it. Beyond its economic contributions, tourism plays an essential social and cultural role, fostering interaction among peoples and cultures, a dimension that often remains secondary but is equally significant. At this point, it's important to emphasize that tourism should be regarded not merely as a privilege for certain groups, but as a universal right and necessity. Cultural dialogue and social cohesion can only be achieved when all groups and communities have access to tourism opportunities. Returning to global tourism figures for 2024, figures for 2024 of the 1.5 billion international tourism movements, 747 million occurred in Europe and 360 million in Asia. Turkey, together with France, Spain, and Italy, ranks among the top 5 most visited countries in the world. These countries share common characteristics. Their Mediterranean location, favorable climates, rich historical and cultural heritage stemming from ancient civilization, and diverse culinary traditions all of which make them highly attractive destinations for both family and individual travel focused on sea and cultural tourism. Turkey, uniquely situated at the crossroads of Asia and Europe, combines these features with its tradition of hospitality, natural beauty, and the millennia-old coexistence of diverse people and faith on the Anatolian lands, making it an unparalleled destination for world tourism. Few countries in the world possess both the historical depth and the natural and human resources that allow for the development of nearly every form of tourism. In addition to being one of the leading destinations for coastal tourism, Turkey also offers exceptional opportunities for thermal tourism, winter sports, nature and ecotourism, diving, congress and fair tourism, cruise and yacht tourism, golf and religious tourism. Thanks to its historical, cultural and natural wealth, Turkey welcomed 62.3 million visitors in 2024 and achieved 61.1 billion USA dollar in tourism revenues, breaking its own records each year. Data from 2025 also indicates that Turkey is on track to meet its tourism goals once again. This success cannot be explained solely by Turkey's natural and cultural assets. It's also the result of our country's intense efforts in tourism promotion, safety, and sustainability, particularly in the post-pandemic period. In this context, the Turkey Tourism Promotion and Development Agency, established in 2019, plays a pivotal role in achieving our tourism objectives by developing and implementing global promotion and marketing strategies in line with the Ministry's tourism policies. The Safe Tourism Certification and Sustainable Tourism Certification schemes for accommodation and tourism enterprises, the Night Museum initiatives and the Heritage to the Future project, which ensure continuous excavations and restoration throughout the year, play a vital role in our tourism strategy. As the Ministry, we never consider these achievements sufficient. We continue to raise our goals each year to further increase Turkey's share in global tourism. Distinguished participants, due to its broad and multi-layered structure, tourism cannot rely solely on individual efforts. It requires a clear strategy and collective ownership. At this point, the concept of sustainable tourism gains importance. The main objectives of sustainable tourism can be summarized as effective conservation of natural resources, reduction of excessive use and waste, preservation of natural, cultural, and social diversity, inclusion of local communities in tourism planning, support for local economies, coordination between the tourism industry and public institutions, education of tourism personnel and awareness raising among tourists, encouragement of research in these fields. However, the true aim should not only be to attract the highest number of tourists or generate the highest revenues, but to conduct all tourism activities with respect for the environment, nature, people, and all values under a framework of quality and sustainability. Natural promotion policies form a cornerstone of any tourism strategy. To this end, travel and holiday programs should be developed for different income groups, taking into account the country's educational, income, and demographic structure. It's equally important to introduce lesser-known aspects of the country, develop alternative tourism types, create attractive new destinations and routes, and strive to spread tourism activity throughout the year. Furthermore, a strong emphasis on tourism promotion, building a national image that reflects the country's character, in identifying target tourist profiles, and communicating positive developments in the country's tourism sector across all platforms are essential components of an effective tourism strategy. In conclusion, when implemented consciously, tourism will neither harm local economies and environments nor erode social and cultural values. Instead, it will continue to serve as one of the key driving forces of economic development. As the Ministry of Culture and Tourism of the Republic of Turkey, we are pleased to share our knowledge, expertise and experience with our Eurasian partners across all platforms, contributing to the unifying power of tourism based on peace, brotherhood and tolerance. Distinguished guests, before concluding my remarks, I would like to sincerely thank all those who contributed to the organization of the 18th Verona Eurasian Economic Forum in our country, particularly President Mr. Antonio Fallico, and to express our pleasure in welcoming you to Turkey, not only for this event, but also as our guests for future holidays.
Thank you, Minister. We now invite to the stage His Excellency Mr. Alparslan Bayraktar, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources of the Republic of Turkey.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real honor and privilege for me to address at the 18th Verona Eurasian Economic Forum. And I would like to begin by extending my sincere congratulations to the organizers of this forum at a time when the global economy is navigating through significant uncertainty and transformation. Bringing together such a diverse and high-caliber group of participants is both timely and commendable. This gathering also demonstrates a shared commitment to dialogue, cooperation, and pursuit of sustainable growth across our wider Eurasian region. Where does my country, Turkey, stand for in this transformation? Geographically, economically, and politically, our country sits at the crossroads of continents, and this position gives Turkey a natural advantage as a center of gravity for regional and global cooperation. In the face of global uncertainty, our strategy, Turkey's strategy, is very clear: flexible, forward-looking, and diverse strategies. Over the past 2 decades, our economy has almost quadrupled in size. Our industrial base has changed very significantly, and our export has expanded into different markets, into different geographies. Turkey today is the 17th largest economy in the world, with strong growth momentum, a dynamic private sector, and deep integration into global value chains. Energy lies at the core of Turkey's economic growth and strategic vision. Our objective is to ensure secure, reliable, and affordable energy while driving our net zero transition. But I'm sure you will all agree with me that today's energy world, supplying reliable energy at affordable cost, is becoming increasingly difficult to achieve. Turkey's total installed power capacity now exceeds 121 gigawatts, and over 60% of it comes from renewable energy sources, a share that put Turkey among the leaders in its region. We continue to attract both domestic and foreign investments to wind, solar, geothermal, and biomass projects through various investments and business models. At the same time, we are taking firm steps in nuclear energy, which will play a vital role in ensuring clean, reliable, and baseload power for our growing demand. Together with our Russian partners, we are building our very first 4 reactors in Akkuyu nuclear power plant, one of the largest energy projects ever undertaken in Turkey. The first unit of Akkuyu is scheduled to begin generating electricity in the year 2026, next year, marking a very historic milestone in our energy diversification journey. Our cooperation with Russia in the nuclear field is more than a single project. It is a strategic, long-term partnership that includes technology transfer, human capital development, and industrial participation. Hundreds of Turkish engineers, young engineers, have been trained in Russia to work and operate these reactors, ensuring that this collaboration creates our own national capacity. And looking ahead, we aim to reach 20 gigawatts of nuclear power generation capacity by the mid-century, including new reactor projects in Sinop and Thrace region, as well as small modular reactors that will further enhance flexibility and system stability in Turkey. This nuclear expansion will serve as a cornerstone of Turkey's low-carbon energy future, while deepening technological and economic cooperation with our international partners. Natural gas also remains an important fuel for our energy markets, for our economy, because we consume gas in our households. Every single day, 22 million households receive natural gas, industry, and for power generation purposes. Turkey has developed strong long-term partnership with producers, including Russia, Azerbaijan, and Iran, while expanding our LNG regasification infrastructures fivefold since the year 2016. With projects like TurkStream and TANAP, Turkey is not only ensuring our own supply security, but also becoming a regional energy center, facilitating gas flows from east to west, from south to north, and contributing to Europe's energy security. Our domestic resources are also growing rapidly. Sakarya gas field in the Black Sea, with 785 billion cubic meter of gas reserves, is already producing and will soon reach to 45 million cubic meter per day capacity. Meanwhile, the Gabar oil field now produces over 80,000 barrels of oil per day, make us to reduce our import dependency. All these projects strengthen Turkey's energy independence while creating opportunities for investors, technology providers, and our regional partners. Turkey's Energy Efficiency Action Plan aims to cut energy consumption by the year 2030 by 16%. And through that, we're going to be able to avoid 100 million tons of carbon emissions. And we're going to do $20 billion of investment to reach our energy efficiency goals. This will not only reduce emissions, but also create thousands of new jobs and improve competitiveness across economies, across industries. Our approach goes beyond resources. It is about innovation, it is about invention, and constant improvement on technology. We are investing in human capital, sending hundreds of students abroad every single year to specialize in nuclear, renewable energy, and clean energy technologies. Turkey's growing role in energy naturally empowers its economic influence. By promoting renewable investments, enabling regional integration, and contributing once again regional energy security, Turkey, we support directly to regional economic resilience. In addition, Turkey's logistics, manufacturing, and technology sectors make it an attractive destination for investors seeking stability, connectivity, and access to multiple markets at once. From Central Asia to Europe, from Mediterranean to Africa, Turkey is becoming an energy, trade, and innovation hub. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, in an era where global cooperation is more essential than ever, Turkey stands ready to build bridges between continents, between industries, between traditional and new energy systems. Our message is simple. Turkey is open for business, open for innovation, and open for partnerships. We will continue to play a constructive role in shaping global economy as a reliable partner for shared prosperity and sustainable growth. Once again, I wish you a very fruitful meetings today and tomorrow, and looking forward to seeing some solid, tangible results from this wonderful forum. Thank you.
Mr. Alparslan Bayraktar, sizi 2 dakika misafir edebilir miyiz?
Mr. Alparslan
Our
Bayraktar.
esteemed ministers, Professor Fallico, and the distinguished speakers, His Excellency Mr. Mehmet Nuri Ersoy, Mr. Alparslan Bayraktar, and please come to stage Mr. Alexander Stuglev, Mr. Bekir Polat, Mr. Kirill Komarov, and of course Antonio Fallico. Mr. Mehmet Nuri Ersoy and Mr. Alparslan Bayraktar, thank you very much for joining us again. And distinguished guests, we now continue with the opening session. And it's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speakers. Mr. Alexander Stuglev, Chairman of the Board and the CEO, Roscongress Foundation, Mr. Bekir Polat, Vice President, Investment and Finance Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Türkiye, Mr. Kirill Komarov, First Deputy Director General, Director for Development and International Business, Rosatom State Atomic Energy Corporation, Professor Antonio Fallico, President, Association Conoscere Eurasia. The session will be moderated by Mr. Alessandra Cassieri, distinguished journalist from Italy. Please big applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. My name is Alessandro Cassieri, and I am really proud to be here again. I can say that I am a veteran of the forum, the International Economic Forum of Verona, and this is the edition number 18. The conditions are excellent, and I am particularly pleased to stay here because this year we are at the crossroad of the present history for political, geopolitical, industrial, energetic and economic conditions. So it's a pleasure to introduce our guests for this special panel, and I would like to introduce the first of them, that is Mr. Alexander Stuglev, that is the President of the Board and the CEO of Roscongress Foundation. That is a real important reality. It's a big platform, but Mr. Stuglev can explain what is doing Roscongress at international, worldwide level. Please.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to welcome you all in Istanbul. We have met a lot with many of you at various Roscongress venues, but we have always supported organization of the Verona Eurasian Economic Forum because it contributes a lot into cooperation between business partners and countries. And I'm happy to welcome you here. We have heard many times already that definitely holding of this forum here in Istanbul, in the city that unites continents, cultures and economies, is very meaningful. We all see that the world has been transforming very rapidly. And this is the time when we see new opportunities for our cooperation. At the times of global turbulence, it is extremely important to build bridges among countries and regions. And the Verona Eurasian Economic Forum was established for this, to promote dialogue and ties and consolidation of the constructive forces of the world. And I would like to thank personally Professor Antonio Fallico, our great friend. Thank you for excellent organization of this event. And Roscongress has taken part in preparation of this forum, and I do hope that our participation is relevant and meaningful. This year, the Verona Congress is devoted to new energy for the new reality. And when we speak about energy, we also speak about energy of people. Today, stronger than ever, we need efforts of all people to work together. We need to create and build our future, our safe future that will enable all of us to be proud to pass it on to our children and grandchildren and further generations. Right now, we are facing enormous transformation, and all the challenges we see today all over the world, all the technological challenges and climate change, we are absolutely sure that all these turbulence will enable us to find the appropriate solutions. The events of the past years demonstrates that the states remain guarantors of security and prosperity of their peoples. And that is why we need to use every opportunity to ensure favorable conditions for national and overall development and growth. And this includes establishing sustainable, solid ties. And this is what Roscongress has been working towards.
Despite all the attempts of to restrain the economic development of our country, we're doing our best, and we are very grateful to each and every one of you participating in our projects. We're doing our best to shape trust, to create platforms that build trust and serve as a springboard to move forward towards success. And we clearly recognize that all of the humankind is facing common challenges that we can work together to address. That includes matters of development of the energy sector, be that matters of development and peaceful use of space and aerospace technologies. We can work, and we do work, in outer space together, ensuring life-supporting infrastructure and everything developed to growing interest and development of digital technology, AI and cybersecurity. That also includes development of transportation and logistic opportunities, protecting the environment and ensuring food security. Eurasia is playing a very important role in the modern world, and Professor Fallico mentioned it already, that the initiative of the big Eurasian partnership manifested by President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, is aimed at shaping open, informational perimeter and consolidation of the countries of the region. This project is there to unite the efforts made by Eurasian countries to build a sustainable, multifaceted, multipolar and fair system of economic ties. And we are doing everything possible with our platforms to facilitate this dialogue. Over the last 20 years, Roscongress Foundation has been supporting both Russian and foreign companies to build relations on mutual ground, search for partners and markets, as well as investors. We've created a diverse ecosystem, creating comfortable environment for a dialogue by focusing on the major areas of our work, be that organization of international events and congresses of the highest international level, contributing to raising investment, multifaceted development of international cooperation, and offering specific analytical and informational services, as well as development of cultural and sports events. I'm not going to name all of our projects, but specifically I would like to invite you to visit our booth that we have out there in the foyer. You will be able to learn more about the Roscongress projects. There's the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Far Eastern Economic Forum, and many other international events that we organize. I also would like to express my hope that the upcoming discussions here at the Verona Eurasian Economic Forum will contribute to building cooperation and development of joint solutions as a response to the challenges that we are facing today. Thank you for your attention, and I wish us the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stuglev. And we could hear clearly what said the Minister of Energy of this country, crucial country, Mr. Bayraktar, and of course we could listen also Mr. Stuglev about the central question, the human resources, but not only them, because financial systems, economic systems, industrial systems are growing everywhere in this area of the world. Is a crucial area, and at this point I would like to hear Mr. Bekir Polat, that's the Vice President Investment and the Finance Office of the Presidency of the Republic of Turkey. Please take the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. As you all know very well, for the last couple of years, it's all over VUCA. It's not a new term, but since a couple of years, everybody is dealing with VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Individuals, companies, even nations, countries are trying to navigate with these VUCA times. As an investment and finance office of the country, we are on the search of more foreign direct investment to the country. That's our main responsibility. And right after the pandemic, we were still trying to attract more foreign direct investors to the country. And every investor told us the same thing. Türkiye is a very resilient country with its economy, with its people, with its culture. Whatever happens, in or out, Türkiye always bounces back and has a V-shaped recovery. What makes Türkiye resilient? The next question would be. There are a number of reasons for that, but as an investment and finance office, we would like to underline 4 main reasons why Türkiye is a resilient country. Well, it's mentioned already in the minister's speech during the morning, but number 1 is the growth. Over the last 20 years, the average growth rate of this country is 5.3%, making Türkiye one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The second value proposition of the country is the youth. Average age is 34.4, making Türkiye the largest youth population compared to Europe. As mentioned, energy is important, but dynamism, the energy of people, is also very important. There are close to 1 million university graduates every year, over 300,000 high school graduates every year. On top of that, as Minister of Energy said already, there are young minds going and studying abroad, but there are other students coming to study in Turkey. Over 350,000 from the MENA region comes and study in Turkey, learn Turkish, exposure have it, to Turkish culture, and they get back to their countries, knowing Turkish, becoming a C-level decision makers or bureaucrat in their countries. And I think it's important for the soft power of the country in the long term. The third one is the location. Everybody tells, okay, Turkey is in a very strategic location at the nexus of Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. But let alone geostrategy is not important. Turkey, for the last 20 years, pouring investment into infrastructure and superstructure, say it railroads, highways, airports, to health infrastructure, digital infrastructure. Over $300 billion of investment went into the infrastructure, and additional $200 billion investment will be done for the next 20 years in the country. And the fourth is the structural reform agenda of the country. Continuously, we are trying to make Turkey a competitive country in the region and globally as well, to create a more friendly, investor-friendly and business-friendly environment. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting with the vice president of the country, gathering 60 different multinationals, top decision makers, and to discuss what Turkey should do to improve its competitiveness. Well, but when we look at the numbers, apart from these four main reasons, the international investment paradigm is shifting. In the last 2 years, the 75% of announced foreign direct investments went into the future-shaping industries. $370 billion of investment went into the artificial intelligence infrastructure. 80% of this number went to the data centers. The other 15% went into the semiconductor manufacturing, and the remaining 5% went into the research and development. So data-related, data capacity, data processing capacity is a new petroleum for the digital economy. So Turkey has been also trying its best on this sense, on this end. We had a new foreign direct investment strategy for 2024 and 2028. The digital and sustainability and green transformation is at the heart of our strategy, along with this artificial intelligence. So I don't want to keep you long. I'll be around here to further maybe discuss any potential interest in the country. I'd like to thank you for your interest, and I'd like to thank also to organizers as well, because when it's VUCA time, I think it's very crucial to come together more often, like in these kind of events, and to talk to each other more. So it's very precious. Thank you to organizers and all the stakeholders. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister Bekir Polat. And the main core of our day is, or our forum is this year, the energy, any kind of energy. But of course, energy has gas, oil, nuclear, renewable energies are the fulcrum of this our job, our work, our meeting. So I would like to ask to Mr. Kirill Komarov, that is the first Deputy Director General and Director for Development and International Business of Rosatom State Atomic Energy Corporation. That's a very big, great, enormous company, and we can hear which kind of job is doing Rosatom in the world and this country in particular. Please.
Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends. The Rona Eurasian Economic Forum has long become a platform for an open, multilateral dialogue, for cooperation of partners in the space of bigger Eurasia. It is an effective tool of economic diplomacy. And this year, for the first time, it is warmly welcomed by the Republic of Turkey. Over the last few years, this country has become the heart of economic development, not just in the region, but also in the whole world, thanks to very effective state policy, raising investment, development of infrastructure. Thanks to that, Turkish economy has been demonstrating sustainable growth. However, particular attention should be given to the energy sector. Step by step, Turkey has been implementing its strategy to becoming the energy hub, tying together the East and West, South and North. Our forum is dedicated to energy this year. Today, globally, we see growing energy demand, primarily for the electric power. That is conditioned by the population growth, development of industry, and implementation of AI technology, as well as transition to electronic mobility. Looking into the future, by 2050, the global energy consumption may double and electric power demand may achieve 50 trillion kilowatt per hour, which means that one of the major goals pursued by the whole world is to ensure the world population with stable, pure, clean energy supplies. And we are convinced that this task cannot be resolved without nuclear energy. For Rosatom, it is a great honor and a great responsibility to participate in the largest nuclear construction site that is going full mode in Mersin province of the Republic of Turkey. And Akkuyu is the first nuclear power plant in Turkey. This is a mutually beneficial strategic project contributing to strengthening of multifaceted cooperation between our two countries, contributing to energy security and sustainable economic development of the Republic of Turkey. We at Rosatom encourage all of our partners to make use of our unique experience and advanced solutions to ensure energy supplies and cover their energy needs, but also to ensure the energy sovereignty of their country. 2025 is a very special year for us. This August we celebrated 80th anniversary of the nuclear energy in Russia. Over those 80 years, truly remarkable results have been demonstrated by Russia. In the previous century, we've commissioned first nuclear power plant in the world. The first nuclear icebreaker was built. The first floating nuclear power plant was designed. The first neutrons nuclear reactor was commissioned, and the first one-of-a-kind tokamak reactor, the device capable of retaining plasma. And the nuclear energy has a big dream: to make human life better using clean energy and advanced methods of nuclear medicine, new materials, modern digital technologies. And the amount of knowledge accumulated in the nuclear energy and our ability to implement large-scale projects with a planning horizons of dozens of years bring us much closer to this goal. Traditionally, we are very supportive of broad international cooperation, exchange of knowledge and best practices. We are convinced that only together are we able to ensure sustainable, innovative development, not just for the nuclear energy, not just for the energy sector, but for the world economy as well. By uniting our efforts, exchanging knowledge and innovations, by overcoming challenges together, we shape a global ecosystem of trust and security. I am convinced that our forum and future strengthening of partnership in the Eurasian space will lay a solid foundation for implementation of the most ambitious ideas. I wish all the participants exciting work, constructive discussions, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you to the Director Kirill Komarov, that maybe we can hear again later today in this same room. Let me now introduce il professor Antonio Fallico, che è da quasi 20 anni, da 18 anni.
He has been the promoter and organizer of this forum for the last 18 years. He has striven and overcome all the challenges of organizing this forum in order to foster dialogue, even in the most critical times of international situations. So let me introduce Antonio Fallico, President of the Associazione Conoscere Eurasia. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, thank you very much for joining us at the 18th edition of the Verona Eurasian Economic Forum, organized by the non-profit association Conoscere Eurasia. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the administration of President Erdogan and the government of the Republic of Turkey for helping us organize this initiative here. Furthermore, I have to express my gratitude to our strategic partner, Roscongress, and our local partner, the Office for Investment in Turkey. And I would also like to express my gratitude and esteem for our sponsors who have always supported us. Let me just mention a few of them: Gazprom Bank, Rosatom, Novatec, Ariston Group, the Chamber of Commerce of Italy and Russia, OMK, OSM Holding, Nexus World, Lex System, Osatim, IC Holding. Thank you very much to all these friends that have enabled us to organize today's event. Our forum was created in Verona in 2007 to launch a permanent dialogue among the protagonists of the economic, social and political development of the large Eurasian area. So a dialogue on the role of Eurasia, its perspectives and the goals of its economy in a historic context that already back then was showing signs of structural and geopolitical change. Our dialogue has always been open to all representatives of business and institutions, regardless of their geographical position, their geopolitical belonging and their participation in sides, even military sides. Something that particularly emerged from the works of the Forum over the years has been the need to give voice also to the BRICS countries and the countries of the Eurasian Economic Union. At the same time, we have realized the need for the economy to be aimed at meeting the needs of mankind and the interests of all stakeholders, not just the profit and the benefit of shareholders, so that the already enormous social inequality affecting the whole of our planet, Europe and Asia, the East and the West, is not further fostered. Now, after 14 editions in the city of Verona, in order to grant the possibility to everyone to participate without any limitation or discrimination, in 2022 we decided to organize our forum outside Italy. Thus, we went to Baku, Azerbaijan in 2022, Samarkand, Uzbekistan in 2023, and Ras Al Khaimah, United Arab Emirates in 2024. And today we are in magic Istanbul, where the history, the culture and fate of Europe and Asia, the Mediterranean and the Silk Roads, the Balkans and Asia Minor, of Christians and Muslims intertwine. The very urban and architectural landscape of the city is living and actual proof of this, because it shows its stratification and wonderful synthesis of the civilizations of Byzantium, Constantinople, and then Istanbul itself. We are deeply grateful to the authorities of the Republic of Turkey for welcoming us with true feelings of friendship and hospitality, offering us to meet in this fabulous palace which seems to be floating on the Bosphorus. This palace hosts prestigious international meetings to foster the understanding and cooperation among people. And among these events, we should remember the 3 meetings held between May and July this year between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations, especially fostered by President Erdogan. Therefore, we shouldn't be surprised by the fact that Turkey was willing to open its doors to host the 18th Economic Forum. The country has become one of the beacons of the current international systems, with its influence by far exceeding its political, economic and military potential. This evolution has been possible thanks to the fact that Ankara is very far-sighted and has been able to strike a balance between, at times, contrasting interests and pressure. It's been able to take advantage of its diplomatic action, of its unique geographical position and its political will to play an important role in the turbulent international context, a role that is adequate to the country's history and ambitions. Let me make a few examples. Turkey has a strong influence in the world that speaks Turkic languages, thanks to its intelligent soft power. The country develops political, economic, scientific and cultural bonds. It promotes and protects the elements of the shared language and culture, but it doesn't do so with an imperialistic approach, which makes these interactions particularly effective. Also considering that the states that speak Turkic languages, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, for example, wish to maintain and strengthen their own national sovereignty. The role of Turkey in the Middle East and its surroundings is also been growing, especially after the change of regimes in Syria. And its activism on the Palestine side and in the dialogue with the other Muslim countries makes the Turkish voice increasingly heard. Even in more remote areas such as the Horn of Africa, the country plays a considerable role in guaranteeing security in that part of the continent. The geopolitical change of the last 3 years has brought advantages to Turkey. In a disciplined way, it could have stuck to a specific line defined from afar, but it has been acting independently, taking maximum advantage of the new international configuration and, let's be honest, also gaining economic advantage from it. Thanks to its geographical position, Ankara has become essential to everyone, to the West, to Russia, to China, to everyone who is looking for new routes and markets. Its political shrewdness keeps it away from exaggerated external pressure, leaving the country a lot of space to maneuver, which the country fully exploits. For example, its key role for NATO in its geographical area and its political and military position drastically lower the pressure that allies can potentially exercise. Allies therefore take Turkish interests into consideration to the advantage of everyone. This situation allows President Erdogan to present its country's international action as an example to be followed, and rightly so. In a recent interview for the American Fox News, he said, "We keep relations both with Russia and with Ukraine. Our model consists in maintaining good relations with the various parties." And it is no surprise that the head of the Republic of Turkey participates and is welcome in Brussels, in NATO summits, in Kazan, in BRICS summits, in Tianjin, the recent summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Turkey is not a member of these last two organizations, but it keeps a dense and useful dialogue that is interesting to all the parties. This beneficial configuration is perceived as absolutely natural, as a reflection of the unique place of Turkey in the world and of its clear influence in global affairs. Turkey produces 1% of the world GDP. According to the International Monetary Fund, the average real growth rate from 2011 to 2024 was 5.5%. And with a compound interest, that means that the actual GDP grew by 110% overall in that period. That is to say that the economy has more than doubled in size. Italy achieved a similar performance in about twice the time. Our economy has doubled compared to 2002, but it's been stagnant since 2008. It is true that in 2025 inflation is estimated at 36%, but a slowdown is foreseen in 2026, down to 23%, thanks to monetary and fiscal interventions of 2023 that are stabilizing the country's economy. And let us measure other important macroeconomic variables, again based on the data from the International Monetary Fund. The debt to GDP ratio in Turkey is 26%, and in relation to GDP, public spending is 34%. Gross savings are 25%. The current account deficit is 1.2%. The population has grown by 15%, is now at 86 million, and unemployment stands at 9.4%. Overall, the other economic fundamentals suggest a country with great potential for expansion, a country that is completely free from the burden of public debt that weighs so heavily on European economies. The country is deeply rooted in the international economic system and the trade exchanges between the various regions in the world. And it has become one of its most important protagonists, if not for the operation of volumes, for its influence and centrality given to its geographical position. This situation has contributed to a significant increase in the external trade for Turkey in the context of the geopolitical developments of recent years. Thanks to its realistic policies, Turkey has taken up the role of one of the main geographic and logistic hubs for international trade. Between 2021 and 2023, its imports grew from $271 billion to $360 billion. And its exports are also growing. It was $618 billion in 2022, $617 billion in 2023, and the same in 2024. Italian companies have benefited from this, thanks to, among other things, thanks to re-exports to other markets. Looking at the latest data, between January and July 2025, Turkey's trade reached $368 billion, with imports at $212 billion, with an increase of 6.6%, and exports around $156 billion, positive 5.2%. In July of this year, Turkey even set a record for monthly export growth in its history, a growth of 11% for a total of 25 billion in absolute terms. The trade dynamic is positive, even though Turkey's trade balance has been in chronic deficit since 1947. In terms of the product structure of Turkey's exports, there has been a notable decline in the share of textiles and clothing, which was once among the leading sectors of foreign trade. At the same time, supplies of mineral and agri-food products are growing. Imports of machinery and transport equipment are on the rise. As for the structure of foreign trade, Turkey sells machinery and equipment for transportation, which is about 31% of total exports, including road vehicles 15%, machinery and household equipment 6%, manufactured goods, iron and steel and metal products, and then other products including clothing, accessories 10%, food and live animals 9%.
Importa soprattutto macchinari e attrezzatura di trasporto, 31% del totale delle importazioni, di cui veicoli stradali 7% e di apparecchiature elettriche.
And electrical equipment 6%, manufactured goods 16%, mineral fuels, lubricants and related materials 16%, including petroleum and petroleum products 4%, and raw non-edible materials. The geographical structure of Turkish foreign trade is logical. Turkey's main export partners are Germany, 10% of total exports, accounting to $20.43 billion in 2024, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, the United States, 6% each. And then France and Spain. For imports, the main partners are China, 10% of the total imports, equal to $44.93 billion, almost on a par with Russia, $44.02 billion. Then Germany, $27.08 billion. Next come the United States and Italy, 5% each, France, Iran, Switzerland, South Korea, the United Kingdom, Spain and India with 3% each. Bilateral relations between Italy and Turkey are based on a solid economic foundation. In 2024, trade between the two countries reached $25.3 billion, an increase of 3.4% over the previous year. Furthermore, Italy is Turkey's fifth largest trading partner for imports and the fourth largest for exports. The sectors with the greatest complementarity are technology-intensive sectors, such as the automotive sector, but also mechanical engineering, aerospace and defense. Among Turkey's suppliers, Italy ranks fourth behind China, Russia and Germany. Turkey's imports from Italy increased despite the overall decline, minus 5% of Turkish imports. In 2024, Italian exports grew by 23.9% from 14.2 billion to 17.6 billion euro, while Turkish imports to Italy for the first time exceeded 12 billion euro, an increase of 4.4%. Turkey ranks 10th among Italy's main export markets, with a share of 2.77%. About a quarter of Italian supplies to the Turkish market are mechanical and capital goods, especially metalworking machine tools, textile machinery. Turkey is the world's third largest importer of this product and Italy's second largest market, but also agricultural machinery, packaging and wrapping machinery, lifting and handling machinery, metalworking machinery, and so on. About 10% of Italian exports are motor vehicles, including engines, as well as other parts and accessories. Significant sectors of exports from Italy are chemicals, metal works, and electrical equipment. Italian imports from Turkey follow a similar pattern and have more than doubled in volume over the last decade. In 2014, they amounted to only 5.7 billion euro. Turkish companies supplies goods in the automotive category, about a quarter of total sales, including passenger cars, goods, vehicles and accessories, but there's a significant share of metal products as well: steel, copper, aluminum, but also white goods, clothing, chemicals and textiles, as well as electrical equipment. Agricultural products account for 5% of Italian imports. The upward trend in bilateral trade is confirmed. In the first half of 2025, trade had already reached 13.9 billion euro. Unfortunately, Italy lags far behind other European partners, such as Germany, Great Britain and the Netherlands, which accounting for only 3.4%. However, there are over 430 Italian companies operating in Turkey with a total turnover of 18.5 million euro. Turkey is a major project for Europe in terms of peaceful expansion and the building of mutually beneficial alliances. However, the global economic context needs to be taken into account because it's still uncertain. At last year's forum, I emphasized the fact that business does not like uncertainty. It prefers to operate within a well-defined, predictable and certain framework. Well, first of all, we need to note that the trend towards the division of the global market into regional zones is not being reversed. The globalization of regionalization continues. New commercial transport routes are being established at an accelerated pace. Sometimes this is due to force majeure, such as when for months merchant shipping routes were forced to circumnavigate Africa instead of entering the Suez Canal directly as a result of attacks. Supply chains and productive and technological cooperation are also disrupted or modified. Costs rise significantly. New preferential zones are formed, and partnerships that seem solid and eternal are undermined. After the arrival of the new American administration in the White House, a profound review of the mechanisms of international economic relations began. The new American tariffs have generated chain reactions. Some counterparts have accepted the new tariffs, albeit reluctantly. Others instead have negotiated with varying degrees of success. Others have resisted. And among these are important countries, including the founders of BRICS: China, India, Brazil, all three for different reasons and with different scenarios. It is to be expected that the unexpected events will not disappear. New problems will continue to arise, generating newspaper articles and stock market jolts. At the beginning of the year, it was the United States' claims on Greenland, Canada and the Panama Canal, and a few weeks ago the US claimed its intention to regain the gigantic Bagram military base near Kabul. So the international context is affected by ongoing geopolitical tensions. There's a talk of settlement to the conflict in Ukraine, but the concrete outlines and timing of this complex process are still not clear. Each side currently has its own vision, which is incompatible with the others. It will be key to avoid an escalation on the ground. A truce has now been signed in the Middle East. We hope it will not prove as fragile as it appears. At the same time, there are signs suggesting a possible escalation of the conflict with Iran. If this were to happen, the consequences would be unpredictable and incalculable. Unfortunately, the general trend is that force, including military force, is being used with increasing ease and recklessness, as if many of the restraints that in the past managed to contain this type of action have disappeared in the current complicated situation. In recent months, we have also seen episodes of war between India and Pakistan, Thailand and Cambodia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda, a missile attack by Israel and the US against Iran. We also saw the Iranian response. Armed clashes continue in Myanmar and the Horn of Africa, in the southern Sahel region, tensions in parts of East Asia. We are seeing outbreaks of violence in Nepal, Indonesia, the Philippines, even in the United States. Let's just remember the immigrant riots in California. These protests sometimes trigger violence in major European capitals. It's as if force, brute force, has become the last resort in a context where people do not listen to each other. There's no dialogue. We do not seek for shared solutions. This makes the international context very unstable. It slows down business as well as the economic and social progress in a world undergoing profound change. Now, dear friends, the transformation of the world in which we operate and the process of establishing a new pluralistic and multipolar governance in the international context, which was already visible after the 2008 financial crisis, has now reached a turning point. The forces that we see, we are now forced to abandon obsolete mental frameworks. We need to radically rethink our way of looking at contemporary times. The concept of the West and its values must be completely reviewed. Emmanuel Todd argues in his book that there are two definitions of the West. The first is a broad definition that looks at the flourishing of education, the affirmation of the capitalist economy, and the US power systems, which also includes countries such as the United Kingdom, the United States, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. This is the West. This is what he writes. This is the West of today's politicians and journalists, and of a NATO enlarged to include the Japanese protectorate. In this enlarged West, the takeoff of economic development compared to the rest of the world was determined by two cultural revolutions, the Italian Renaissance and the German Protestant Reformation. The second interpretation of the West is more limited and considers participation in the liberal and democratic revolution as the criterion for inclusion. In this case, a smaller group of countries are part of the West, only England, the United States and France. The English Glorious Revolution of 1688, the American Declaration of Independence in 1776, and the French Revolution of 1789 are the events on which this narrow liberal West is based. In a broad sense, therefore, the West is not, this is Todd's conclusion, is not historically liberal because it also gave rise to Italian fascism, German Nazism, and Japanese militarism. We might add that among the monsters created by this West in these 500 years of history are many, including the violent conquest of America of the Southern Hemisphere, the genocide of native peoples, the enslavement of Africans and other indigenous peoples, colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, patriarchy, class hatred, racism, apartheid, and white supremacy. Today, Western democracies are in a terminal crisis and are experiencing post-democracy. The mainstream narrative centered on the contrast between Western liberal democracies and autocracies is no longer tolerable. It is paradoxical that the West claims to represent liberal democracy in opposition to supposed autocracies, just as its Anglo-American core, which invented this form of democracy, it is in a deep and perhaps terminal crisis. At the same time, some international events, and in particular the recent summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Tianjin, which followed last year's BRICS summit in Kazan, have clearly shown that the Global South, or as it is sometimes called, the world majority, is beginning to gain a considerable weight, and it is making its independent choices. There have been frequent attempts to simplify events and present this new reality as an anti-Western movement. This is serious misjudgment. It is not against the West, but it's something that is happening without the West. It is not out of antagonism or a desire to sideline the West. It's the West itself that has sidelined itself, trying to continue imposing its choices without taking into account the developments that are underway, the interests of others. In fact, it's ignored them, believing to be the sole holder of absolute truth, and it's trying to put pressure on others and to impose various forms of conditioning, including force. This attitude could work in the past, and it did work. Now it no longer does. The Global South is seeking new mechanisms for interaction and consultation. It's looking for solutions to the most important problems of our time, but not in opposition to the West, which in a sense ignores it or considers it as an interlocutor of little importance. The Global South is working without the West. Now, in this context, comprehensive dialogue is necessary. There's no point in hurling invective and threats. It's important to seriously take the other into account. Among other things, the Global South and its emerging structures are based exactly on this principle. Despite unequal political, economic, military and technological weight, all countries are listened to and treated with respect. The strongest does not impose its will on others. Consensus is created instead. Solutions that are useful to all are sought. Now, of course, it's a difficult exercise. We shouldn't think that the process of sharing is easy, idyllic, smooth and free of contradictions. We must take off our rose-tinted glasses. The road ahead is very hard. However, it is important to seek shared solutions. It will be very useful for the West to join in this historic movement. Let's look at Russia, which is certainly one of the main actors in the challenge to the unipolar order. The country is seeking a new European and even global security system. It takes into account not only its own concerns, which it believes are systematically ignored, but it also takes into account the needs of other countries without any discrimination. It is important to bear this in mind in order to understand the position of principle and the specificity of the world majority, in this case, in the Russian vision. It is often said, written and read that the new structures of the Global South are not effective, that they are only a facade, because there's no discipline, there are no obligations. But it's quite the opposite. This is precisely what makes the BRICS countries so powerful, attracting dozens of countries looking for cooperation. Even countries in direct conflict with each other are joining the BRICS countries. Think of India and Pakistan, Iran and the Gulf monarchies. Look at China and India, which after recent and even armed confrontations are now looking for and finding a way to smooth over the differences and work towards an agreement. Finding themselves under strong Western pressure helps these competing nations to meet and organize themselves together. This development has also meant that India, finding itself under unprecedented external pressure, has decided to become a major world power. It's made it clear to all its partners. With its 1.4 billion inhabitants, and as the fourth, soon the third global economic power, it no longer wants to just play the role of a serene and distant Zen observer. The maturity shown by India, which may be followed by Brazil, is the big news of recent years. In short, it is time for dialogue and sharing. The West should join in and not oppose this trend. The Global South is not against the West. It is pro-Global South and now has the means to promote and realize its aspirations. Turkey, which is hosting this year's Eurasian Economic Forum in Verona, is a particularly important country. It is part of NATO and aspires in theory to join the European Union. At the same time, it attends the BRICS and SCO summits. It dialogues with many parties in the search for agreements and acts as a mediator. It is an example of how we should proceed in seeking solutions and agreements. Even if we don't always succeed in finding these solutions, the search in itself helps us to understand and respect each other. It helps us to shape a new world. In modern geopolitics, this is a lot, even though success is never guaranteed. The United States, or at least the forces behind the new administration, have felt it and probably understood it too. And this is why they are trying to become part of this world that is taking shape. They do it in their own way, with actions that bear the mark of President Trump's personality. However, it is clear that the American approach is more rational, it is less ideological and unilateral than it was in the past. In the last 3 decades, a complete reversal seems unlikely, even if there is a change in the government majority in Washington. Now, this doesn't mean that the US is giving up, certainly not. Safeguarding the primacy is still their strategy, but they are trying to achieve it using other means and taking into account all the changes that are on the way, and they are trying to take their place not in an imaginary space, but in the harsh reality of the post-Cold War world. The classic Cold War now almost forgotten and looked at only from school history textbooks. Today we find ourselves in a theatrical performance from the 17th, 18th century, when Aristotle's rules of poetics were observed. The action on stage had to be carried out in accordance with the unity of time, place and action. Now, here is the stage. The time is ripe for dialogue. Dialogue is an absolute necessity in our day and age. It is the absolute responsibility of all humanity. The place where we are is ideal. Istanbul, the only city in the world that spans 2 continents, Europe and Asia, with 3 bridges connecting the 2 shores of the Bosphorus Strait, which in turn also connects the Black Sea with the Mediterranean Sea through the Sea of Marmara. And it is also a passage for Russia, Ukraine and Romania. You need to go through Turkey to access the Mediterranean. Now it is up to us to take action during these 2 days of the forum. We're not going to shift the tectonic plates of geopolitics and geoeconomics, and yet let's continue to exchange ideas, visions and actions to promote the diplomacy of economics and promote social progress. Let's build a future of prosperity and peace for those who will come after us and for our children. We need to fully assume our responsibility. Allow me to quote, before I conclude, a passage from a poem called To Life by the great Turkish intellectual and poet, I'm sure you know him much better than I do, Nazim Hikmet. Life is not a joke. Take it seriously. Take it seriously to such an extent that if you were put up against the wall with your hands tied or inside a lab wearing a white coat and glasses, you would die so that other men and women might live. Men whose faces you will never know, and you will die knowing that nothing is more beautiful and more poor than life. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Now, with this presentation, we close the first session. Now I give the floor to the chair, Tazio Schilling, and his distinguished guests. Thank you very much.